So then moving on to Aragon, one of my questions was about turn one when Pedrosa just about high-sided. I guess in turn one it was like not going to get caught out in turn one again that time because you shot right past him.
Yeah, turn one was kind of was a little bit nervous because I had Danny on my left and Valentino was kind of leaning on me from the right a little bit, and just wanted to get through there. But I was more worried about turn two because turn two, it's with the back straightaway being so long, and the right hand side of the tire doesn't get worked there too often. And then by the time you get to turn two, you've spent like 30 seconds without going right at all. So even on a normal lap, the right side of the tire is a little bit unpredictable, I guess, in turn two. And then after you do a warm up lap, you don't have any heat in the tire. And then the first time you go to turn two after doing a start, it's been pretty much 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes since you've been on the right side of the tire. And I was worried more about going back to the right side, and because it had caught a lot of people out in practice. And but yeah, when we got to turn one, I saw Danny kind of lost the rear Valentino and got in too hot, and I jumped up in there, and we were I think in fourth place or something. Danny came by on the straightaway, and then we just tried to latch on everybody, and had a pretty good race.
The Friday, one of the sessions Friday, or most of Friday, was wet. It didn't seem like you've ridden the GP bike much in the wet, the Suzuki a year or so ago, but any remarkable thing come out of the wet practice?
Just still amazing how good you can go on the rain tires. It's one of those things. I spent the whole session out, and in hindsight, when the session's done, I was sitting there thinking with about 15 minutes to go, every lap I'm taking a second off my lap time. I'm like, man, I should come in and maybe we should play a little bit with some settings, or maybe change the tire pressure a little bit. But then I was like, no, I just need to keep going and try to find the limit. And I slowly built up and got kind of five, and was good because it was more me just wrapping my head around how fast you can go in the rain on those tires. And so we did learn a lot because that was the first time I got to ride that bike in the rain, and the first time since Indy. So it took me a while, but by the end of the session we were good, and I was happy with it. And fortunately we didn't have to race in the rain, but it actually was a good kind of test session for us.
You said about the track that it was just so fun you just didn't want to quit riding, and you hadn't come across a track like that anymore. I was just curious what your thoughts were expanded on that concept.
It was a cool track. It had a mixture of everything. It had, turn one was kind of tight. The last turn was a super fast entry. It kind of had, some elevation, like the little downhill corkscrew. Had one corner where it was a long, fast third gear that kind of G'd out in the middle, that was going uphill. It had everything, and I mean, it was a awesome facility in the middle of nowhere for sure. But it was a super cool track, and definitely I think everybody liked it. Everybody enjoyed it.
I was curious, I guess you were in the commentary booth for Eurosport 2 talking with Julian Ryder and Toby Moody, and I didn't get a chance to download that, but they said you had mentioned about Pedrosa that he's riding the wheels off that bike. It is fast, but really he's riding the wheels off it. But so what about that?
Yeah, I mean, right now, he's riding. He's riding good. He's is he's where he was lacking, whether the bike wasn't working too good. The bike's working extremely well right now. It's fast, and he's riding as good as anybody, as good as the second or third place guy. And with that package, he's been super fast. So it's not like his bike's just fast and he's riding it okay and he's winning. He's riding the pace that needs to win, and then his bike is pretty fast, and it's working, but he's riding it too. He's you can't fault him. You can't say he's just on the best bike right now. I mean, he's riding the hell out of it, and
Yeah,
it's
because
working.
going down the front straight, he popped out of the draft and blew by you, but then Dovizioso couldn't do the same thing to you for lap after lap after lap. You kept him behind you.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, you know, his bike's definitely, he rides, he gets out of the corners really well. He's able to get the bike stood up. Um, you know, so because even the other Hondas were quite fast. So I think it's a different in style for sure. But yeah, I mean, Danny's bike for sure down the straightaway was a missile. I mean, it was super fast.
We've gotten some email, and everybody wants to know if you're getting lots of factory help now because you're going to the factory bike next year. Have they started to feed you all sorts of cool parts and cool frames and cool engines?
You know, everybody likes to think that, you know, they're taking stuff away from Valentino and they're giving stuff to me and they're doing this and that and this, and the fact is, I mean, me and Colin, I've said it before, we got, you know, a small engine upgrade at Laguna, and our bikes are the same as they were then. I'm definitely riding a little bit different. You know, I wouldn't say better, but I mean, I'm more consistent on doing the right things I need to be doing on the GP bike. And my style's, you know, slowly getting a lot closer to everybody else's that's riding the Yamaha. But you know, since we've announced the Yamaha deal, since I've known about it, which was well before that, and what's going to happen for the rest of the year is you know, my bike's not changing. They're happy with what I've been doing on it. You know, they say that, yeah, I mean, they have some other stuff that, you know, is a little bit better, but it's not going to be, again, it's not going to change a lap time a second, you know, faster a lap. But yeah, I mean, my bike hasn't changed since Laguna Seca.
That's what I figured. I mean, yeah, that's what I thought. In the early laps of the race, you were behind Nicky, and he gapped you by like maybe 5-10 bike leaks, and you hung there for a while. Do you just settle into your own pace, or do you try to hang on to him?
You know, I was riding okay the first 2 laps, and then I made 3 pretty big mistakes, and it got me about a second and a half, 2 seconds behind. And I slowly, you know, with about 9 laps to go, I got it back to about, I got close, as in a little over half a second at one point, and then I basically lost the grip from the rear tire on the very edges. And the whole time I knew that Dovizioso was behind me, and he wasn't catching me, but he was doing everything I was doing. So the whole race, when I was slowly just a tenth a lap catching Lorenzo and Nicky, he was doing the same thing I was doing. So, you know, after about 6 laps, I knew that I really wasn't going to shake him, but I knew I was slowly closing in on Lorenzo and Nicky, and that's what I needed to focus on. So I just quit looking at my pit board, and I was looking at my splits on my dash and my lap timer and just trying to be real consistent. And then as soon as with about, you know, 9 laps to go, I knew that I kind of had a problem, and I was going to be a little bit slower for the rest of the race. I looked at my pit board and saw that he was there. He was still a second behind me, so unless he was going to encounter the same problem, he was going to catch me. And I just waited for that to happen and kept going. And then when he caught me, I just kind of rode a little bit different for the rest of the race. And you know, I was happy with it because we came out on top. And most of the race we slowly caught Nick and Lorenzo, but I couldn't do anything with it. But I was happy with how that went, and then the end of the last few laps was definitely pretty exciting with Dovey and myself, and we were able to come out on top.
A couple of the times going into some of the turns, you know, it's probably partly the camera angle, but it seemed like Dovey was right next to you, and you would just, I'm going to brake latest, and you would sail into the corner and cut him off, and I was like, did you worry about getting T-boned, or did you just don't think about that?
No, I mean, the lines I was doing, I mean, if anything, I would run a little bit wide and maybe he would get up underneath me. But those couple corners obviously were the back was the last corner off the back straightaway, and you know, both times he'd actually full on passed me, and I was just coming from around behind him on the outside, and then on the last lap or two to go, going to the white flag, he had passed me and put a bike length on me. and I just kind of went around the outside of him again. And I knew that at that point he was able to run about a lap time that would be about 2/10 quicker than mine. But I knew that I was really strong on the brakes where it mattered to stay in front of somebody. So as soon as he passed me, I basically had to retaliate and pass him right back, or he would have been able to get away from me. So every time he passed me, I passed him back. Going into the last corner, coming up on the white flag, I passed him back, ran a little bit wide. He got underneath me, and I got a really good drive and went into turn one and outbraked him again. And then we went back and forth a couple other times. But I basically just couldn't let him lead for more than 2 turns, or he would have got away from me. So that's why I was kind of, doing some late braking maneuvers, but it worked out.
Dude, it was super sick. I mean, the one when you talk about that white flag lap, he came in underneath and you kind of took the regular line, and then you were able to slingshot out of there, and I guess he couldn't get the drive, and you beat him to turn one, like you were saying. Did you kind of plan that when you saw him come underneath? You were like, oh, I'll just stand it up and drive out of here and beat you to turn one.
Yeah, I mean, it did work out like I thought it would. I went in there and I knew that I needed to get back around him, but I knew I would have ran wide. So when I ran wide, I knew he wasn't on the perfect line because he had to tighten it up a little bit more to get underneath me. And I knew by him doing that, me coming from the outside, I was going to get a really good drive. And, I just got back in his draft. And when he moved over to brake in turn one, I just went in deeper. It was able to hold it off. But in the last corner, like I said, it was a combination of not that I didn't run it so wide. I mean, I was just about 3 foot off normal line, but he just tightened it up to get underneath me. But then it kind of threw his exit up, where he lost a little bit of his drive, and I was able to get, because his bike was definitely quicker than mine. So with his lack of drive and me getting a really good one, I was able to stay in his draft and then outbrake him into turn one.
So what happened on the last lap? They never showed it on the TV. Did he crash behind you and you didn't know, or did you hear him crash behind you, or what?
No, I heard him crash. We went off the back straightaway, and he had just passed me back in turn 8, and we went into turn 11. I outbraked him on the inside and got in too hot, and but then the next corner we were going into a left-hand turn, and the immediate next corner was a right-hander. So you would go through the left-hand turn, pull it back so you could square up for the right-hander. So what I did when I knew I was in the left-hander too deep, I just let off the brakes basically and worried about getting to the right-hander before him. And I knew I wasn't on the right line, but I knew I could probably beat him to that turn and then just kind of block and slow down. And once he knew what I was doing, he basically rushed a little bit, getting back on the throttle to try to beat me to the corner. And he high-sided, and actually was a pretty big crash. I thought he low-sided, but when I saw the crash mark, on the cool-down lap and talked to him, he had high-sided pretty big. But, it was one of those, we were just trying to beat each other to the next corner. And I wouldn't say he made really a big mistake. He just got to the throttle a little earlier because he saw what I was trying to do, and again, it worked out in our favor. But I saw it out of the corner of my eye because he was about 10 foot to the left of me when it happened, and as soon as I saw him on the ground, I just kind of eased into the finish.
Well, it was a fantastic race. It really was. It was one of the best ones to watch, I think, for a long time. Well, that's all I had. I guess you'll jet out to Asia here on Monday morning or something like that?
Yep, Monday morning we will be on our way, and Japan, Malaysia, Australia, 1 week off, and Portugal and Valencia. So it's gonna be over pretty quick, and it's gonna be a fast trip. But I think we've got some good confidence, and we've been on a pretty good roll, and just try to keep things going. We've out of the last 5 tracks, I know 3 of them, so that should be good, and hopefully put together a good last part of the season.
All right, good luck. We'll hopefully look to catch up with you maybe in that break period, when you got a minute, and get some more lowdown. This stuff is so good, man. The information is so awesome. We really appreciate it. All right, safe travels, man. Okay.
All right, thank you.
See you.
Thanks a lot.